So the second study, is a study of individuals who detransitioned. And for this, I define detransition as having transitioned with medical or surgical methods, and detransition by stopping the medications or having surgery to reduce the changes. And so this is a similar method. However, I collaborated with two individuals with personal experience of detransitioning. And this was hugely helpful to ensure that the survey was clear, that it was relevant to a variety of experiences with detransition, and in helping with the recruitment. And so for this recruitment, we reached out to communities that might favor a quick approach to transition, such as the WPATH listserv, APA, as well as to communities that may not believe that transition is universally beneficial to everybody, like the detrans forums, or actually Facebook groups at that time. So going on, here are my participants. There were 100 individuals age 18 to over 60. They were predominantly female, from the US, UK, Canada, Australia, predominantly white, supported lesbian and gay rights to legal marriage. And they first heard about the survey and blogs that covered detransition, other social media. So we evaluated whether individuals had early onset or late onset gender dysphoria by asking at what age they became gender dysphoric, and also did they become gender dysphoric during childhood, at the onset of puberty, during puberty, or later. And so we divided, so early onset was if they began to feel gender dysphoric during childhood. And it was roughly, half and half, early onset and late onset. And 55% of the natal females reported that their gender dysphoria began with puberty or later. And so this is that new presentation that we're talking about. One of the criticisms to the parent report study was that, well, all of these kids must have had early onset gender dysphoria and they just concealed it from their parents. So having these firsthand accounts from people talking about their own gender dysphoria is really helpful, because these individuals said this is when their gender dysphoria started. So there were differences between the female participants and the male participants, and these are the ones that were statistically significant, except for the mean year of detransition. So female participants were younger when they sought transition. They were younger when they decided to detransition, and they were younger at the time of the survey. They had a shorter duration of time that they were transitioned before deciding to detransition, and they transitioned more recently than the males. They were more likely to be exclusively homosexual, and that is based on natal sex. And they are more likely to have experienced the trauma less than 1 year before their gender dysphoria started, and more likely to have felt pressured to transition. So the vast majority of participants took cross-sex hormones. 1/3 of the females had breast or chest surgery, 16% of the males, and 6% had genital surgery. And to detransition, 95% stopped taking cross-sex hormones, 14% started taking hormones that were consistent with their natal sex, and 6% had surgery to reverse the changes from the transition. So the reasons for detransition were diverse, and the most frequently endorsed reason was that the individual's personal definition of male and female changed, and they became comfortable identifying as their birth sex. But people also had concerns about medical complications. They found their mental health did not improve with detransition. They were dissatisfied with physical results. They discovered that their gender dysphoria was caused by something specific, such as trauma or a mental health condition. And some people experienced discrimination and financial barriers. So I analyzed respondents' open text and short and multiple choice to identify different experiences around transition and detransition. And so I'm pointing out where the percentage that of individuals that fell into each narrative. Most people did express more than one. So the narratives that are relevant to this talk are that gender dysphoria was caused by trauma or mental health condition, internalized homophobia, social influence, and misogyny. However, I would like to point out that 29% did detransition and experience discrimination and external pressures. Some had the experience of being non-binary, and some people did retransition. So again, these findings are the ones specific to psychosocial factors. But when participants were asked to describe how they feel now about identifying as transgender in the past, more than a third endorsed the option of someone else told me that the feelings I was having meant that I was transgender and I believed them. And so this speaks to the social influence in how individuals interpret their own feelings and experiences to come to a conclusion about themselves. In this population, I did see some of these friend group dynamics described in the parent report study in terms of an increase in popularity when announcing a plan to transition, and groups that mocked people who were not trans-identified. Individuals identified sources that they said encouraged them to believe that transitioning would help them, and 20% indicated that they felt pressured to transition by a person or group of people. And so this included clinicians, partners, friends, and online communities. So here are a few quotes that individuals provided to the "Did you feel pressure to transition?" And I'm only going to highlight a few of these, but one quote is that everyone says that if you feel like a different gender, then you just are that gender and you should transition. And so this is a ideological belief that has become very common and prevalent. So another person wrote, "By the whole of society telling me I was wrong as a lesbian." So this really, we've got a lot of work to do about homophobia. And several individuals wrote about their clinicians. "My gender therapist acted like it transition was a panacea for everything, and my doctor pushed drugs and surgery at every visit." And so if interactions like this can be verified and confirmed, this is really concerning. So other psychological findings: 58% of the population of the participants came to the view that their gender dysphoria was caused by mental health condition or trauma. And more than half had a belief that transitioning delayed or prevented them from addressing underlying conditions. So conclusions: the reasons and experiences around transition and detransition are diverse and include discrimination, concerns about medical complications, difficulty accepting oneself as LGB, coming to the view that their gender dysphoria was caused by a mental health condition or trauma. And a subset of detransitioners provided firsthand accounts that support the ROGD hypotheses. This study, like all studies, has limitations, and more research is needed.